So there's something really interesting and fascinating going on with current minority leader and probably going to continue to be the minority leader in the Senate. That's Chuck Schumer. And, Chuck Schumer is not really known to be a, quote, progressive by almost anybody's standards, unless you're a Republican, probably. But he's not really a progressive guy. He's more of your down the line, centrist type of guy. So what's really interesting is he's been sounding a lot more progressive lately, and I'm wondering why. I think I know why. You guys may know who Anand Giridharadas is. He's a writer who talks a lot about wealth inequality. He had Chuck Schumer for an interview, and so Chuck Schumer basically told Anand that he's arguing for an FDR like first 100 days. He's saying they'll focus on the climate, $15 minimum wage, infrastructure bill that will also employ people with prison records, and student debt cancellation via executive order, and also immigration. So I'll read you the whole quote. It says, one area is climate with a big, strong, aggressive climate agenda that takes into account working people, takes into account racial injustice. The second is wealth and income inequality, obviously raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, changing the tax code so it's fairer for labor rather than capital, strengthening labor unions. One of the reasons working class incomes have declined is the weakening of the labor movement. We have to strengthen that. We need a big, broad infrastructure bill, and it could create millions of jobs. A lot of those jobs should go to poor people who have had prison records, and these are good paying jobs. Getting rid of student debt. I have a proposal with Elizabeth Warren that the first $50,000 of debt be vanquished, and we believe that Joe Biden can do that with the pen as opposed to legislation. Then there are issues that don't seem related to income inequality but are: immigration reform, criminal justice reform is another economic issue. If you have a small conviction for a minor crime, you can never get a good job. I like the idea of paying care workers more. So it sounds very progressive, right? $15 an hour minimum wage seems to be the most popular progressive plan with politicians who appear to be centrist, which is really interesting. Now, what's even more interesting is the prospect of Joe Biden signing an executive order that would cancel $50,000 of student debt is something that makes me really excited. If he is to do that, obviously, given the circumstances that we are in, I wouldn't consider that a crumbs move. I would definitely consider that to be a pretty significant move. So it would definitely be pretty cool if that happens. If there are two things to happen early on in the administration: canceling 50K of everyone's student loan debt, everybody who has a loan for student loan debt, and then obviously with publicly held universities or also some private ones, but also putting Bernie Sanders into your cabinet as labor secretary or anything really significant, I will be pretty happy. Now, he also sent out a tweet just today. He said voters in 4 more states just voted to legalize adult recreational use of marijuana. It's time to pass time to end the federal prohibition on marijuana and work to undo the harms done by the war on drugs, particularly in black and brown communities. So he's starting to sound more and more like a certain somebody. That person goes by the name of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, it appears that likely what's going on is he's feeling a lot of pressure from potential primary challenges from AOC. AOC, it's been floated a lot in the news. People often talk about the potential of AOC actually challenging Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer's up for re-election in 2 years, 2022. So, if she wanted to, she could, sign up and basically decide to, challenge Chuck Schumer for this Senate seat. Now, is she going to do it? Probably not. And honestly, I would personally prefer if AOC were to try to take on Kirsten Gillibrand in 2024, because I think it's safer. I think it's much too risky to risk your House seat, which you're going to lose if you run, and then potentially lose the Senate seat. Now, also, we've seen AOC and Chuck Schumer. I think it was in the aftermath of RBG's passing, if I'm not mistaken. We saw them together at a press conference. So maybe he's being influenced by AOC. And also, you got to remember, New York has become a breeding ground for progressive candidates. You've got Jamal Bowman, now AOC, obviously. You've already had AOC. Now you have Jamal Bowman. You have Mondaire Jones. You have other people as well in New York. So it's really interesting to see what's going on. And so I think that Chuck Schumer is doing all this because he's scared shitless of a primary from AOC, and he's going to be caving into progressive pressure. So if Biden does end up doing these two things, canceling 50K off everybody's student loan debt, private or public, and then also, putting Bernie Sanders as labor secretary anywhere significant in his cabinet, I will definitely be happy and optimistic. Especially if Chuck Schumer is telling him to do it. Again, the thing about student loan debt is the vast majority of it, like 90+%, is held by the federal government. They're federal loans, which means that by executive order you could just cancel it unilaterally. So that's really what I'm hoping that he will do. But I'm not 100% sure if he's really going to do it or not. Hopefully, and then $15 minimum wage is another thing, but obviously you have to pass that as legislation. Democrats don't even have the Senate, so that's kind of bleak. It looks kind of bleak for sure. So I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen there, but let's see what he's going to do. And Chuck Schumer seeming to really have a different tone now, and I think we know why.